Hey, good afternoon. I am John Davison with startuplandia.io, and around the world we have Lucas Dreishi and William Baxter, both technical people who play in the sandbox with us, as you might say, playing in the sand. Today in our vibe coding session, we are going to look at some Figma designs that Cami, our designer, made quite a few years ago, actually. I really like her designs, and I've learned a lot about what I think goes into good layouts and good copies, but more importantly, I've learned a lot about how we talk and sell Startup Landia. And so there's some lingering designs that we never put into play because back when she wrote the designs, it could have been like 25 hours worth of developer time to, implement one kind of challenging layout. And I am curious if we can use three different styles of implementation to see what kind of output we get. We're going to use the Claude MCP server and give it some designs and ask it to create some HTML for us. We're going to use Aider. I don't even know if Aider can look at a JPEG. I'm just assuming it can because it's kind of done some intelligent stuff in the past. And then we'll try to use builder.io, which might require a Figma integration, and then we'll see if it can generate some stuff. And so um, my acceptance kind of criteria here today are going to be that the outputted layout looks relatively reasonable, that the code can more or less be interpreted by somebody who might have to make adjustments because the closer we get to HTML, the more, excuse me, things have to look good, which means at some point we're going to have to go in and inspect things and tweak and peek, and the code has to be readable. And then I guess the third thing that's part of acceptance is I don't want to redesign how the site is built. I don't want to rebuild the HTML. I don't want to rebuild the deploy experience or anything. And so that's a kind of an anti-pattern in my opinion, where every time you try to build something, an AI makes you make a huge amount of technical choices that you might not have previously made. It's like, hey, we already solved HTML and CSS. We're using Ruby Jekyll. It's super simple. So like if the AI can't get along with that, then we're going to treat it like any, new developer who won't sort of code to style. And my hypothesis is that Claude MCP is going to do a better job of all of them because it's not attempting to write code. Well, it's not attempting to write code into the code base. It's just going to output a couple of files that it thinks mirrors what it sees underlying. And I think Builder probably will do something useful too, but I have a feeling it's not going to integrate well with because it's not going to have the ability to see our current code. Okay, with that being said, let's screen share and go look at what we got. Okay, so here is Claude with the correctly running MCP. And here is the code base. Here's the MCP server running. Let's label that MCP. And we'll make that a little bit bigger. I don't think there's a lot of logging that happens in the MCP server. And I don't know why it says Dart. This is definitely a Ruby Jekyll project. Um, we'll call this Startuplandia, and we'll name this one CLI, just to make it clear what our tabs do. Make that font a little bit bigger. Can everybody read that?
Yeah.
And you can see in the browser that I'm looking at localhost. And if I go to startuplandia.io, we would expect to see something similar. Yeah, so startuplandia.io on this tab and localhost on that tab. So maybe some tiny spacing differences, I don't know. The internet is a wild, wild place.
You have a bit of zoom in this tab.
Yeah, there you go. Localhost had zoomed in. Okay, now there's no shift. Perfect.
Yeah.
Um, So then let's look. I think this would be a pretty decent layout. Um, let's look around a bit if there's anything else that might be easier or more interesting. Uh, we could start with, I really like this. Our original mantra was people helping machines, helping people. And people would ask me, they're like, hey, do you build robots? And I was like, well, a server is like a kind of a robot with no body. And they would just look at me funny, but I think it makes a lot more sense now. It makes more sense to people, and it's more true as like what our business does than ever, right? We're not just like product engineers. We're like helping an emerging class of entities get, be useful, and we're helping people get help from that emerging class of entities. And it's kind of a palindrome. So maybe we'll just let's could we say replace the splash? No, let's just add this to the top. All right, we're gonna go like this. I'm just going to screenshot this and I'm going to go to Claude and I think I got to say switch project people. This is the MCP command to change code bases. Okay, perfect. And so I want to give it real precise commands. So I'm actually, oh, this is also the code base. Um, I want to, oh no, no, don't. Startup Landia people. V2. Um, so in service offset content. So I think offset content is the file that we care about. We're looking at a Jekyll templating system. Jekyll is great. So if I delete line 23, we should lose our splash. And we need to refresh. Nope, that was not what we wanted. Oh, so it's literally this right here. So should we put that into a, no, we'll just see if Claude can figure that out. Um, here's what I'll do. I'll say in the file index.html, above the HTML node, so I'm giving it like the node. I want you to look at the attached JPEG and generate the HTML required to insert this new layout on top of the HTML node I've just given you. Is that a decent prompt?
I think so.
We'll find
Can
out.
you? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. The thing I lo one of the things I like about this is that there's literally no there's no uh instead of there's no instructions booklet on what will work. So like incredible naivete is rewarded, which is at odds with computer programming traditionally, where just to get a seat at the table, you have to kind of be like, intellectual ninja. I've read The Art of Computer Programming. I got a master's degree in computer science, and you're still just writing CSS. Um, and I'm going to tell Claude, you might notice in the JPEG, the text people helping machines, helping people. and only the first people is font color white. Make sure to make all the font color white. And if you need an actual JPEG for the art on the left, assume I have that file and it is called art.jpg. All right, so I just added a little bit because I always got to make it difficult. Did you guys hear my son out there crying? Man, he's so cute. But he doesn't get a cameo because he is too young to be on the internet. Um, I don't want the artifact. I just want the code. Oh, interesting. Okay, so I'm going to I'm just going to insert the HTML. Um, let's see how that goes. Not very well. Mm, why not? Row hero section. Can it not see the CSS that I'm using? Text white. Um, row hero section. I mean, that is just so terrible. I don't know what to say. Why isn't the text white? It's not even selectable text. Span class.
This text to white class, it was created by Claude, right? I think
No,
you
I
need
don't
to
think
copy
so.
that. No?
No, because look, it already exists.
Yeah.
Um, what's different? Row, splash container, BG blue. So let's just do something like this. Splash container, BG blue. What happens if we just sort of make the sections the same? Okay, that was like kind of an improvement.
Yeah.
Um, art.jpg. We already have our art down here, so what's this called? Assets, images, graphics.png. Is that like part of Get in Touch? No. Oh, most excellent support. What was that called? I just want to see how I'm calling that graphics. Oh yeah, we're in the right place. So assets, images, graphics.png. And CTA image is the class. How'd we do? That's not terrible, I guess. What did our screenshot look like? Kind of white on. So we're kind of there. It looks a little bit closer if you make it smaller. People helping machines, helping people. I'm gonna call that like a maybe. What do you guys call that?
Um,
Like not good enough
af-
to get a job for sure,
yeah,
and like not good enough to represent the business, but
5 out of
the
10.
a 5 out of 10. Will, how would you rate it?
A rough translation. Yeah, I think 5 is probably about right. I mean, it got the overall sensibility, right?
Yeah.
But
It's like
fine placement is completely off.
directionally correct.
Yes.
But I would say that like this, the the code doesn't really have the AI engine doesn't really have the wherewithal to understand what this looks like unless I give it another screenshot or something. And I
I'm not
guess coming,
I'm not entirely clear on what it sees, what the AI has seen.
well, I uploaded the JPEG here in Claude when I prompted it.
But it has not seen this destination page at all, right?
Well, it can read the MCP server can read the underlying HTML. And
Okay.
so when when you see it run this get file command here,
Yep.
it's getting the context of index.html. And so I actually think this is a reasonable proxy for how a machine would see, right? Remember, machines really don't see and LLMs really don't read. We're just feeding in a sequence of coordinates that have a probability sort of distribution inside the knowledge base. And an algorithm is basically being like, here's a reflection of that, probability distribution. It doesn't actually read our input. Hey, draw me an apple. It doesn't know what any of that stuff is. So it's all basically like coordinate interpretation. And to just say that it's seeing by seeing the HTML, I think is a form of coordinate interpretation, right? What would you expect this to look like? I think it's a close something. I would give this a 5. And this comes back to my sort of my belief that um, as people as capitalist economics, which I am generally a capitalist, um, as capitalist economics, they cannot they cannot resist the pull of zero cost engineering. And so even if this is a 4 or a 5, if it's a 0 out of 10 in terms of cost, somebody will find a way to put it to use. And so while it may not satisfy our sort of sensibilities, right? Like our human visual sensibilities are actually probably a lot closer to Steve Jobs's. And the market's sensibilities in this case are like purely rational, although I do think it's somewhat irrational in its irrationality. It's like do anything that reduces costs, which is that truly rational? I think there's a fair amount of economic literature that would argue the opposite. Um, okay, so Claude, good job. I'm going to give you a 6 out of 10 because if all you wanted to do was convert a drawing to HTML, it did a pretty good job. So now well, Yeah, we'll just say that's what did I say, a 4 out of 10 or a 6 out of 10? I think I said a 6 out of 10, right?
Yeah, 6.
Yeah, so let's go here in GB, get checkout, layout, Claude, oh, dash B. Six out of 10, way to go. And now let's go back to main, and we should not have our stuff because, oh, yeah, because I turned off the server. Um, it's interesting. Like I keep having this conversation with people where they're like, isn't an AI just like mind blowing in terms of the productivity gains that it gives you? And I'm like, honestly, all the useful programming I do is still at like a snail's pace. And like if you notice, we're going very slow. We're like looking, we're like the old guy in the sand combing the sand. We're just like slowly going through things. Like, sure, maybe the AI is helping things and maybe it's degrading things, but I don't actually feel like my behavior has changed that significantly, except that Stack Overflow is basically dead, which sucks. If there's any single thing I could wish for in the tech economy, it would be that the Stack Overflow people had done a better job of understanding changes that were coming down the pipeline. And to say they missed LLMs and they shouldn't be held accountable is probably true, but there's a ton of evidence that the Stack Overflow started to um, what's the word, go fallow or to stop evolving probably in like the 2018 period. It was already in a state of decline. Anyways, let's not dwell on such things. Let's turn off the MCP server. Let's go back to our good friend Aider. Boom. Aider. YOLO. No, we're not installing new stuff on camera. Add Aider to git ignore. Yes. Oh, I need to check out a new branch for sure because Aider is very, did we already get a new commit? No. Get checkout dash B, feature, Aider, layout. Let's see if that messed up Aider. Nope, seems to be doing just fine. Let's see if our Aider is in there. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to give Aider the same command, except I'm going to rename this screenshot to splash, and I'm going to copy it into the working directory because I know Aider is built that way. People v2 splash, and let's see how it does. Where's my Oh, and we know what our node is called. It's not called art.jpg. It's called, was it in footer? Most excellent support. It's called assets, images, graphics.png. And I want you to look at this. There we go. Make that prompt a little bit easier. I want you to look at the file. What did I call it? Splash.png,
Splash. Yeah.
the file in this directory called splash. Okay, I'm not even going to reread the prompt. I'm just going to let that fly. Add file to chat. Yes. I am massively not a fan of how HTML flashes on the screen like this from Aider. I think for Aider to be a more serious tool, it needs to figure out a way to show left and right diffs. Hey, Aider gods, if you're listening, not like I'm going to submit that pull request though, because I'm not that capable. But we could do that as an experiment because the Aider code base itself is open source and Aider itself is 70 or 80% written with Aider. So we could do another session and see if we could get Aider to figure out how to show me the on-screen diff in two different columns with the same sort of color and look and feel that you would see in a GitHub diff. Anyhow, Anthropic error. Message overloaded. Yeah, so Anthropic was definitely getting hammered this morning. Um, did we get, so it looks like we got one edit to index.html and then a bunch of retrying in 32 seconds. Let's see what we got. Let me increase that font a bit. No, we didn't get anything. So that's a bit of an Aider fail. Attempt to fix lint errors. Um, what lint error does it think it sees? Like a spacing lint right here? What does this little line character mean? See relevant line marked with 3,
Is it those quotes in the class?
like single instead of double?
Well, there's no
Yeah, I don't
spacing
care.
around it either.
There's no space in the what?
Class equals and then
Yeah.
double quotes.
Oh, yeah. Good stuff, Will. Hunting. Um, I'm sure no one's ever made that joke before. Awesome. Applied edit. No. Okay, let's see if it. So we got a Aider commit, 2 Aider commits, add new splash section with graphics and T. I also really don't like how Aider commits, but I think there's a setting that we can change. Let's go see how it looks. I would sort of call that better. Well, it's different. It's broken in a similar sort of way, right? But that is
Yeah.
a shockingly similar output. Well, I guess you would expect the output to be the same because it is Claude. So well, I'm pretty sure I have Aider wired to be using Claude. Um, so let's see.
It got the background color though.
Yeah, yeah. And like they're both broken, but for some reason I think this looks a little bit nicer um out of the box. People helping machines, helping people. Um, it's funny. Would anybody, this doesn't look terrible. Like, should we just ship that? Leave it up on the Startup Landia page? No. But it like gives me the inspiration that like maybe we just need to keep coming up and working on the same prompt over and over and over with a series of attached JPEGs and the copy that we want. And I guess to Will's question, like MCPs are interesting because they give Claude, and I guess you have to say Aider is really kind of an MCP too, right? I don't think it's officially called an MCP. It basically does the same thing. It like makes it easy for the model to get context on the code, we're like giving it the ability to see the code, but we're not necessarily giving it ability to see the thing we're making. And so some sort of browser observable might make this really interesting. I don't know if that's like screenshots. Let's see. Let's see if it can fix its mistakes. I'm going to rename this. What do we rename it? We'll call this output. And let's go back to people v2. And I'm going to say, you're doing a good job. You are doing a 5 out of 10 job. Actually, we'll give that a 5.5 because it did a little bit better.
Hmm.
Can you please look at the file output? PNG, is that a PNG file? Yeah. And figure out the text is coded correctly. I think the original file slash has the text laid out a more vertical fashion. I apologize for not meeting your expectations. I div span. Yeah, so there's an improvement there. Yes. I'm going to say don't ask to run that shell command again. Let's go refresh and see. Okay. People helping machines, helping people. Literally, that's what we're doing in this moment, right? We're learning about a machine while a machine is helping us learn. So I kind of like that. Will, do you have a strict interpretation? Could this PHM HP be a palindrome? Or would you be like, no, because it's an odd number?
No, it looks like a palindrome to me.
Okay, let's just ask Claude, is the string people helping machines helping people a true palindrome?
I thought for palindrome you had to what?
Oh, that's interesting. It is a true palindrome. Interesting. I thought palindrome had to be even amount of characters.
I had never heard that before.
Did it had to be even?
Right. I'd never heard that before.
No, I mean, I don't know. I'm like a dilettante when it comes to these smarter things. What is history's most impactful palindrome, according to John D?
I have a guess.
Have you heard me talk about it before?
No, but it's a man, a plan, a canal, Panama.
No, I was
No.
gonna
Okay.
say, what about the P in CRISPR? I think that's a pretty important P. Like the researchers started to notice that the genetic code was in a palindrome. And it was like looking at the edges of the palindrome that led to some of the developments of CRISPR. So I'm going to say that's a pretty important palindrome. Um,
Something new.
anyways, what's that?
I learned something new here.
Hopefully. So I would give this like what, a 6.5? Or is this pretty much the same? I should have gotten a screenshot.
I don't know if there's a path dependency here, but it seems that it took you less effort to get here this time.
Yeah, because yeah, that's true. There were generally less bugs, and Aider is more hands-on, so it does the work for me, which I think is good and bad. I think that when the systems are starting, there's a huge magic factor to having a machine write the code, but once a system gets really complex, I don't think the speed at which we write code becomes such a big deal. It's like the speed at understanding that we need what we need to build and understanding the underlying system. And I don't know if like a machine writing code really fast is a part of that process. Like I don't know when you get a really large distributed system like running at scale like Google, does AI generated code really improve Google productivity? It probably helps solving some types of edge case budget bugs, and when you have like a ginormous code base that nobody can fully understand, I bet having an AI copilot is very useful in those situations. Okay, so Lucas, what do we think? Can we try with builder.io? I'm going to exit Claude.
Yeah, I think you can try with images too. If
So
you
we'll
want, you
go
can
6,
connect the
10, a bit buggy and less work. Oh, it didn't get my whatever's. Git add. Okay, so then builder.io, right?
yeah.
What should we build? Ask Visual Copilot to build platform, convert designs to clean code, use your framework, right? That's kind of what we're looking for. Convert design to clean code, use my framework, sign up. Is this a Figma service? Let's try. I'm gonna log in. I don't care, I guess. Um, sign up with my email. Sorry. Is it a Figma?
I don't think so.
Does
I think they
Figma
are.
password work at builder.io? Okay, so no, it wants its own stuff.
You're gonna need to sign up.
I didn't? Would I? Oh, yeah. Sorry, that's why it's not accepting it. Develop space. Each space is tailored to a specific workflow. Your selection will configure your builder experience with the option to add additional publish, use for headless, CMS, page builder, personalized content, virtual AI assisted code generation and development for any stack or code base, start new or connect a repo. It's funny how all the tools that are available is all the JavaScript ecosystem stuff that became popularized by coding boot camps, which I still um, sort of didn't come to terms with. So AI settings, Figma import, web import. So let's just attach the code. So GC main git checkout dash B feature builder. And we're just going to basically attach code and then do the same thing. So where was I? And we're going to just assume it has a big context window. Cancel in the below markdown file. Let's get the prompt we were using in Claude. Let's give it the prompt we were using so that everything's pretty similar. And let's upload. No, sorry. So I need to actually go back to a different branch to do this. So I need to go back to like Aider layout because I don't have an example on. Oh, I guess I could just take another screenshot. Now let's not do that. If I take another screenshot, it might be different. And so now I should have splash name splash below markdown file above the HTML node. And now I need to go back to main because I need to copy the HTML. Sorry, that's not what I wanted. Ah, lost everything.
Command Z, it restores.
No,
Ugh.
no, I like went back in the browser. I mean, dude, that's not friendly. Why does it do all this stuff? Like creating machines, start preparing projects, starting server, visual development environment. A lot of these tools have been trying to break into the ecosystem for a long time, where there's like a GUI sort of virtual machine. That's really still a developer workflow, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But now I'm like stuck. I can't really do anything. Setting up a Git user, logged in as a space. What does this stuff even mean? I just wanted it to spit out code. Vite, npm install, Linux, 64. My patience will be used up and we'll give this 2 minutes. Is 2 minutes acceptable? Am I being unreasonable?
Oh, I think it's already,
It's already longer than it took the other tools.
yeah.
Okay, at least it did something. So look, there's a 2 minute timer running. Thinking, files to modify. That's a lot of thinking.
Uh-oh.
Sorry, we ran into an issue processing your request. Please try again later. All right. I'm going to call that a builder fail. Do you gentlemen of the jury agree? Have I not presented a fair and neutral opportunity for the internet AI to do as well as my local AI, which is not actually local. It's also an internet AI.
I had to step away for a moment, but it looks like a fail from here.
Awesome. Lucas, fail? Yes, no. Give us
Yeah.
what's the name of the Caesar and Gladiator?
I will give it a 0 out of 10.
0 out of 10. Oh, uh, that's a that's a big
That's rough.
0 out of 10.
Oh,
So then to summarize, so we got nothing out of builder.io, um, which I'm not trying to necessarily throw shade on these tools. I'm actually very curious to learn how they work because I do believe that whenever you enable people to do new things, that those new things are powerful. I just so far don't get a lot of mileage out of these various tools. And like right now, Builder sits in there with like V0 and what's the other one we used, Lucas?
Applet.
Well, I don't
Replit?
think we got anywhere with Replit, but we also used Lovable. So like
Yeah.
Lovable
Lovable.
and V0 basically had the same not very useful output. Um, let's quickly go look at our branches and lay out Claude, and let's go exit builder.io. And so that's Claude. So the text is a little bit smaller and a little bit fuzzier. And that's using Claude MCP and using uh, Aider, feature Aider layout. Let's refresh that. So now that I compared the two next to each other, I definitely think the Aider layout looks a lot better, although it's still really far off from I would want to use this to promote the business with. Like I generally think this layout needs work actually too, now that I say it. It's a huge work in progress. Um, and uh, let's see. Any questions or comments or observations?
we didn't really give any guidance about stylistic interpretation, right? So, do you want the graphic aligned anywhere? Do you want the text close to the graphic, far from the graphic? What sizing information? So it's interesting that you got a difference.
Hmm.
But for example, when I look at both of those results, the first thing that leaps out to me is that the graphic is just floating there and not aligned with anything above or below.
Context,
Right.
right?
And
It it
so I
created
wonder
it
how.
created the space that we asked for, but it didn't have any sense of how that fit into the world.
Yes.
Interesting. Lucas, anything from you?
Well, I think Aider was better not only because of the actual output, but also you had to manually fix the code that Cloud MCP generated. Remember?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think
I
either.
think one of the things you might be seeing there is that Claude MCP is incredibly stingy. If I say look at index.html, it only looks at index.html, but Aider in the background um, creates a graph of the entire repository, which makes Aider very useful for working on real large code bases. And I don't know the exact sort of nature of when you create a graph, what information exactly is flowing to the model. I think in the case of the MCP, the exact code from the file is flowing to the model. And so MCP probably breaks down a bit in the really, really large code base. It's only ever looking at like sort of a few files. I don't know. That's a good question for someone kind of at a deeper level of understanding of how this stuff works. We could get Jesse in here. Um, he'd probably be able to demonstrate that.
I think it would be a good idea also to sort of describe what what you have on your image when you're working with image to the model, because it's not they the model cannot actually perceive all the information in the image, right? If you if you describe a little bit what you're sending, I think we can have a better result.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I also think that if we, um, again, if you start at the beginning and the AI sees the production process from the start, I think it might have more context when it gets to a certain place, but that's not the reality that I live in. You don't always get the opportunity to build things from the beginning. Okay, so my long-term goal with this would be that I want to make it a lot cheaper and easier to convert some of these interesting designs that we have to HTML. And I think the truth is that the machines are getting better. And if you can tolerate a little bit of variance in the output, it's kind of good. So it's like, let's reduce the complexity of the designs a little bit and reduce our expectations around what the end product looks like. And I think there's a lot of value in um, this style of sort of design and implementation. And again, I feel compelled to say to the audience that for all those posts out on LinkedIn and Twitter where somebody is like, look at this magical thing that I did with an AI, most of the very magical things are done by people who have been programming for like 10 and 15 years. And so just like me, their ability to sort of skip like the part where I debug the CSS, they don't include that in their process because it just happens naturally. And that's a part of learning. And if the AIs paradoxically convince us to learn less in the future, we will have less ability to sort of smooth over the places where the AIs can't perform. And I guess the counter argument is there that as we lose our ability to learn in the long run, the AIs will gain more ability to learn. Like, I don't know. It's still just like self-driving cars. I think self-driving cars are interesting, but I also love driving. And so offering me a self-driving car is not like some ginormous value add to my life. But I do think it's awesome. And I think self-driving trucks for shipping, they can reduce costs would be very interesting. Although I've seen articles on the internet that say training self-driving heavy trucks is very difficult because under normal circumstances, the variance in the data on the sort of the truck itself, like its swing and its sway and all that stuff, the variance in the data is really, really low when a truck is just driving around normally. And then the problems occur when you have a big heavy load driving around and the load gets out of control. There's not really very good training data for what happens when the truck is under like load and it's moving. And humans have an incredible ability to react in that like 0.5% moment and understand how to keep everything under control, but we don't have enough data on those sort of extreme outliers to train truck driving AIs with. And so it's a bit of a paradox that the place where it's probably most valuable is also super hard to train for because there's just not a lot of data. And humans are really good, like a plumber or a mechanic. They're really good at that, like on the fly proprioceptive style feedback. Anyways, musings on things. I would rate this as a better session than last time, Lucas. At
I
least I
agree.
didn't angrily close Zoom, cursing to myself. Will, last time we tried to build a LinkedIn thingy, and LinkedIn, the AI, every single AI we touched is terrible at OAuth or OpenID or any of the things required to like integrate two systems. And I have also now understood that the primary source of LinkedIn API documentation actually lives on Microsoft. So,
That
because
explains a
because
lot.
LinkedIn, yeah, like my LinkedIn is now a Microsoft property. Thank you guys for joining me for the hour. I will certainly post this video, and I will certainly um, I think I will let Ader write the the summary based on the transcript, and I'll record when I do that. I'm John Davison, the founder and CTO of StartupLandia.io, here to bring all of your tech dreams true. On my top left is Lucas Draishi. He's a AI, LLM, and full stack engineer on my team who lives near Sao Paulo, Brazil. And on the bottom of my screen is Will Baxter, a PhD mathematician and CTO, the leader of Austin's own CTO club. Thank you, everybody, for joining me, and have a wonderful Wednesday afternoon.